Okay, I'm live again, back from the dead, back from the dead. Sorry, guys, I started a stream and I don't know what happened, but yeah, I had to restart the stream all over again, but it's all good. I'm back, I'm here, and I had everything all set up, like all nice. Anyway. Welcome and welcome back to AstroLunaChick's Guide to the Universe. I am Susan, aka AstroLunaChick, and thank you for joining me on this Sunday. Sunday fun day. And how about last week? Was that not the most intense week and crazy, like ever? Or is it just me? Was everybody else in the squeeze? I wonder. Hop on the chat if you're here. Hop on, say hello, and let me know what is going on with you guys. And before I tell you what's going on for this week in the astrology, I will let you know where you can find me. I am on, obviously, YouTube, streaming live every Sunday and popping up here and there during the week. And if you subscribe and you hit the bell, then you'll get a notification of when and where I am popping up. And you can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I am also over on Rumble. Definitely subscribe over there because anything I don't want to put on YouTube, I'm going to put on Rumble, my naughty channel, until, of course, they start acting like weirdos, which is highly likely considering the astrology and what I've seen so far. But yeah, unfortunately, you gotta zig when they zag. And I'll just sort of chit chat here, give it a few minutes for the crowd, the huge crowd to show up. It's too bad about that other stream. I, mm, yeah, I won't go into what happened, but uh, I won't bore you with the details. But anyway, half an hour before I realized I'm streaming and I better jump off and restart. But that's all good. It's all good in the hood. Anyway, I hope everyone had a good week and that you're enjoying this beautiful Sunday wherever you are. Here in the Northeast, there's beautiful reds and oranges and golds and browns and greens. So colorful. I always say in the summertime, I'm so sad that the summer is going. But I get into the fall and I'm like, yeah, I do love fall too. It's kind of like that. Anyway, there's no one in the chat room. I don't know if they can hear me or if I'm streaming. I I don't know if I should share this on Twitter. I don't know. I can't get used to saying X. So we'll just leave it at that. Yeah, so let's go into what's going on this week. I hope you're following along with the 3, 6s, and 9s. Um, and if you, let me make mention of this before I get into the weekly astrology. If you're interested in booking a reading or contacting me regarding anything having to do with astrology, the best place to find me is by either emailing me at astrolunachick@gmail.com or reaching out on the AstroLunaChick hotline, which is 914-222-1231. Um, if you're a follower on my any of my social media platforms, you can send me a message. Pretty sure I'm on lockdown on let's see, on Instagram, I think I'm private. I don't know, I don't remember. I go back and forth. But what was I going to say? So if you're a follower, you can DM me. But if you're not a follower, sometimes I see those messages, like message requests, but I don't necessarily see them right away. So just know that. Um, and you can definitely message me on any of those platforms if you're interested in booking a reading, um, or if it's anything astrology related. However, I had someone message me on Signal, and oh, my apologies to Wendy, but I don't know Wendy. And all I got was my uncle said I should message you. I don't know if it's astrology related or not. I don't know who your uncle is. And Signal's a private platform. It also, I believe, shows your phone number. So I'm not using my phone number. And like I said, like Signal, I only communicate with people on Signal that I know, that I accept messages from. Um, I don't take random messages. So, Wendy, whoever you are, if this is astrology related, the only way that you're going to get to me is by what I just mentioned. Email me, astrolunachick@gmail.com, or um, you can call and leave a message or text on 914-222-1231. Those are my business contacts. So there you go. That's what it is. Anyway, um, the astrology, back to the astrology of this week. I feel like the most intense thing is over. It was that Sun and Mercury squared Pluto, which was the peak and culmination of the Mars square to Pluto when all of that war stuff erupted in mid-October. And it's been intense ever since. Well, really, the beginning of October, October 7th. We all know what happened. So that began all of the Pluto stuff, right? So Mars was square Pluto, and the intensity just built and built up to the eclipse. It started before the eclipse, and then we had the eclipse on the 14th, and then there was a building pressure as the Sun and Mercury were moving to the last degrees of Libra to square Pluto. So, whatever the intensity was that you were going through, whether it was internal or external, just know that that has kind of reached its peak. And now it's this sort of psychological processing defragmentation of our psychological software, so to speak. helping us to make sense of it all and to kind of look at what it brought up with us because I mean it was all kinds of intense. And we were already having scorpionic themes with Mars and Scorpio, the Sun and Mercury. So that's like, our very essence of being, the Sun and Mercury, the mind and communications, in a very hard aspect to Pluto. Pluto is the, deep psychological processes that are ruled by Scorpio. Um, because Pluto rules Scorpio. So it is some deep shadow work that we probably are still doing and will continue to do through Scorpio to understand, um, if we were pushed to our brink, what was it that is causing us to become unhinged? Um, and a lot of that you don't know because it's people can put on a good front, especially with all of the transits through Libra. That's what Libra does. Libra is, put on a smile and a happy face, and you won't see that intensity that's going on underneath that Pluto stuff because it's deep dark, and it's stuff that needs to be brought up to the surface. So I had posted a cute meme on my Instagram, and uh, it's this picture of this girl in like an old time salon, and she's got like the bonnet, the plastic bonnet on her hair, the hair dryer with the hose going in, and it says, "Just sucking today's bullshit out of my head." And I think that that perfectly describes what is kind of going on with the psychic atmosphere, the psychic weather, and Scorpio. That Scorpio energy and Pluto, that's like a psychic enema where we need to flush that all out and not let it fester, whatever it is, the fear, the obsession, the control, the dark thoughts of, death and destruction. When we hear all this stuff that's going on, you know, in the Middle East, and then think about what it could mean, here in the US or whatever country we're in, we're being told, that this is coming, you know, to a city near you, and it brings up a lot of dark fears. And I mean, this time of year just naturally brings up the theme of death. We have, de los Muertos, we've got the Halloween season, and I mean, we have our festivals, which are meant to trigger us to force us to think about death and our own mortality and the concept of the other side, what lies beyond the veil. And as we say, the veil is very thin during this time because we are very close to our own, well, if you just thinking about the veil in terms of what is the normal psychic barrier between us and our subconscious, that is what is thin. I think that's why we tend to maybe have more interest in the paranormal, and we are more aware of death and mortality and uh, probably are more apt to have such experiences during this time of year, um, because it's sort of our descent into the underworld, kind of like Persephone. And the myth of Persephone relates to the seasons. And if you're in the northern hemisphere at this time of year, things sort of die off. There is that death sort of process of nature going dormant. So it's all perfectly timed. Anyway, I hope I didn't screw up. I was so good today. I announced my stream on all my platforms, on Twitter, on Instagram, and everything, and boohoo. Anyway, let's get into what's going on for this week. I hope you're following along with my little game of playing connect the dots when it comes to my 3, 6, and 9 days. The 19th was a 9 day, and that was interesting. I know for myself that was definitely a marker, and looking forward to that particular cycle ending for me. And it did not disappoint. So today we have the 3 day. So for this coming cycle, it would extend beyond this week, but the 3 is today, 10:22. The 6 is 10:25, and the 9 is 10:28. Oh, so that's actually next Saturday is the 9, next Saturday. And so we're going through Sunday, the astrology from the 22nd to the 29th of October. Awesome. So, like I said, we reached peak on the 20th. That was the exact square Sun, Mercury, square to Pluto. So, on a very personal level, we may have been looking at our own or other people's psychological patterns in order to perhaps address it, but definitely some kind of intensity coming to a huge peak when it comes to any kind of manipulation and control and fear, uh, and that a lot of that would have had to do with communication also because of that Mercury Sun conjunction. Um, and there could be, I think, if we really looked very honestly about whatever situations we were dealing with last week, um, that was a lot of what we could have been realizing and working on, and also looking at the in conjunct to Neptune, which we were having all of last week, which was really seeing the uh the denial, the lies, the shadow, the fanaticism, the any kind of, you know, a lot of stuff coming up with religion, and perhaps our own like escapism, and looking at, I mean, we really could look at what our pattern is in terms of relationships, in terms of communication, in terms of, I don't want to say fantasy, but like illusion in the sense of projecting maybe worst case scenario, or um, projecting our obsessions onto other people. It was a complicated week, very complicated. And, some people get addicted to what's going on in the media, you know? Um, there's a lot of doom porn out there. And with this aspect to Neptune, not all of what you're hearing and uh, not all the information that we're getting is accurate. Uh, like this podcast is about astrology, so I'm not going to break down the political. Sometimes I talk about it, uh, but whatever political, international, or domestic stuff is going on. But I guarantee you, what you see is not what you're going to get, or it's not being accurately presented because it's propaganda. That's how our system works. That's how the news works. It doesn't matter where you get the news, you're getting someone else's propaganda, which is geared to control you and force you to make decisions and react in a certain way. This is how the human race is controlled by politics and religion. Yeah, so I said I'm not going to get into it. Let's get into the week. Just a reminder, folks, you can find me obviously here on YouTube, but you can go and subscribe to my Rumble channel. Hopefully, I'll have more naughty videos to put up there, and hopefully, they will put up with my naughty videos and everyone else's free speech for many years to come. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll always let you know where I'm bouncing around to. And yeah, so subscribe over there. You could subscribe to my Twitter feed and get the updates of what's going on in the astro world and the world in general. So we can laugh. Laugh. Let's all laugh at the fall of Rome. Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, AstroLunaChick, and on Instagram, where I'm getting better at updating. I updated everything today, and then the first part of the show went, "Beep," but that's fine. So, and as I mentioned before, I don't know, we have 3 people viewing now, so you might have missed it before. If you're looking to contact me regarding an astrology reading or a coaching session, please email me at astrolunachick@gmail.com or leave a message or text me on the AstroLunaChick hotline, which is 914-222-1231. And yep, I got a message from someone on my Signal. I'm sorry, Wendy, I didn't take your message because Signal is a private messaging platform, and I don't usually open any messages from someone I don't know who they are, or, they don't announce what it is that they're looking for. And all I heard from Wendy was that her uncle said she should talk to me. I don't know who that is. So I did not respond. So if anyone out there knows who poor Wendy is, please tell Wendy how she can contact me, and it's not through Signal. Cause there's a lot of like weirdness going on with these aspects. Who knows who could be trying to like bump into my energy field. Good boundaries, good fences make good neighbors. Okay, let's get on to the astrology. Shut up already. Shut up. I already told you guys, like, I am not going 3 hours. I'm just not doing it. It's not happening. All right. 3, 6, and 9, 1022, 1025, and 1028. That's where we're at. Today, the moon is in Aquarius, very nice and detached, able to take a third person view, hopefully. And we have Mercury, which is now in Scorpio. It's getting deep, investigative, and trying to understand, perhaps, what's going on under the surface. But today is a good day to be sort of the observer. Moon in Aquarius, it's the observer. That's the best position to take. And perhaps connecting with friends and your networks, getting on the internet because that's Aquarius. And I've got my antennas up for what is going on in regard to any kind of social media and internet, should we say, not scrubbing, but what do you call that? Like web crawlers and bots and spying and backdoors when it comes to messaging and social media. Um, hmm, data. What is it? Data mining comes to mind. And Scorpio is very it's not upfront and in your face, but it is watching. So we've had Mars in Scorpio, and so the actions, the aggression, the assertiveness, and the attack and the anger on the negative side has kind of gone a little bit dark. Mars in Scorpio does not attack directly. That's energetic attacks. And it's doing more, it's pulling back, it's doing research, it's reconnoitering. And with Mercury now there, it's probably a good time to look at uh, your security in terms of the internet and hacking, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's why I didn't answer, Wendy. It's a good time to be on guard for that stuff. What else is going on? We have Jupiter trine to Venus. That is a very nice, solid, grounded aspect that began with on Friday with the moon in um, Capricorn. That definitely brought us back to grounding, and we're building on that. So any kind of Jupiter Venus aspect is very nice, even though Venus in Virgo is definitely a little cautious, and maybe on the lack side of things. But I think as far as like minimalizing and streamlining in terms of our whatever health routine or daily routine, our relationships, and Jupiter in Earth sign too. It's definitely bringing us back to some kind of a grounding here. Now that the intensity of last week is over, it's past. It's still there, but it's being processed. So that's a good shift. I believe it's a good shift. Although we are going to have the moon square to Jupiter. It's not necessarily a bad thing either, but the moon in Aquarius maybe being very detached, and Jupiter, which kind of expands things, like, are we being super extra in detachment? I don't know. I don't know. So you let me know how you're doing out there. How you doing? It just feels like it's a little bit, I don't want to say better, though it is better. It's better because all that shit square to Pluto was definitely like putting people through the ringer. But you know what it did? It brought up all of our fears, anxieties, um, control issues, and I think bringing it to the surface within ourselves, coming up out of the unconscious, might have been so difficult that we were just about handling whatever we could handle, our own stuff, and maybe not really ready to talk about it yet. But now with Mercury in Scorpio and today's moon in Aquarius, it's a good start where we can start to perhaps understand even the depth of what the transformation is that is going on. Because we've just had everything, going through Libra over the South Node, releasing, bringing stuff up, and squaring to Pluto, and Pluto squaring the nodes. This is a big transformation point, and it's not easy to handle. So definitely take good care of yourselves out there and get the mental health support that you need, which can be, you know, leaning on a good friend. But in times like this, uh, when everybody has something going on, um, it might not be, I mean, it might be hard to find somebody who's willing to listen or that has the capacity and aptitude for it. All right, so this is the 3 day. So the energy is building. The new energy. What is building? What are we building? Well, we're building relationship, we're building value, stability with that Venus and Jupiter. And we're building a strategy. There's a strategy happening here, and it has to do with healing. But in order to see what needs to be healed, we got to look at the wound. So today we have the asteroid Pallas Athena, which represents pattern recognition and strategy, because Pallas Athena is warrior goddess, let's say, Venus in her warrior phase, and she is in her morning star warrior phase. So, so what is it? This will be something that came up with the eclipse because this is where Mercury was in Libra at the time of the eclipse. So, in some ways, it has to do with our mind, how we process things, and how we communicate and taking in information, right? Whether it's watching the news or, you know, watching, well, a lot of people don't watch the news. For me, watching the news is scrolling through Twitter and seeing what's going on. Um, and so, I mean, that could be looking at how we process and take in information and what perhaps what it triggers, what it brings up, what the Chiron, that Chiron opposition. It's Pallas Athena opposite to Chiron in Aries. And you know, I know a few people who are going through their Chiron return right now. So if you have Chiron in Aries, Chiron in Aries is forcing you to look at who you are as an individual and being independent. So this eclipse is bringing up a lot of codependence issues, and that's a very complicated subject because uh, a lot. What I'm going to say about the Chiron return is this: at the Chiron return, the issues that we are having are going to crop up usually in our relationships because it's meant to show us something that we have not yet healed. And Dave in the chat, Dave Cruz, hi, Dave Cruz, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. And Dave is doing a live stream show today through eTalk because they have their haunted marathon. And Dave has a really cool guest on today. I don't remember the name of your guest, Dave, if you want to put it in the chat room. But I'm giving you a shout out here if anybody wants to go and listen to that. That's at 5 o'clock Eastern, right? Dave, if I'm wrong, please correct me. And that would be 2 p.m. Pacific for the Haunted Marathon. And that's at etalk.tv if you're interested. So Dave says, always healing, it seems. Yes, Dave, this is what life is about. Life is about, like, the first half of your life, figuring out what the issues are that we're here to work on and how we've been wounded. Paranormal art author Nicole Strickland. Okay, cool. That's Dave's guest tonight. I will be there with bells on. Um, this is a life's work, like a magnum opus, because it is uncovering to us who we are. We will be challenged, we will be wounded throughout our lifetime with the specific um, purpose and outcome, if we do that work, to understand who we are and how we tick, you know? Like, uh, I don't know how else to describe it, but the eclipse, the solar eclipse of the 14th is going to continue to be triggered. Um, Mercury. Okay, so Mercury was at the position during the eclipse that Pallas Athena is now at 18 degrees of Libra. So whatever the communication issue was, whatever the mm, how do we see the pattern in our relationships as it is affecting us and bringing up our past pain? So wherever that thorn is stuck, that's what we got to look at. Again, it's so complicated. It's very specific to everyone. So, but this will be an opportunity to look at that. Pallas Athena is amazing for um, looking at patterns and our tendencies and working out a strategy of how to heal that. And a lot of it has to do with our maybe anger and frustration and lack of ability to express ourselves, self-confidence issues, um, taking things the wrong way, taking it personally. Um, there's many ways that this plays out, but we need to look at what it is showing us about who we are, um, and perhaps the codependent patterns that we have. And I'm not going to really go too much into that because that's a complicated subject. I think I'll save that for Scorpio season. But I feel like the Venus trine to Jupiter is giving us a good grounding to start with because it's bolstering our self-worth and our value and um, helping us to be a little bit more practical when it comes to our relationships. Venus in Virgo is not super sexy, but she is like in sort of a pure, pure, like purities, purified, virginal kind of way. But Venus in Virgo wants to purify and perfect our relationships. And it's working with Jupiter. She's working with Jupiter to help us to see uh, our what are our values, right? What are our values and how are they changing? And how can we affirm our value and maybe where we haven't been doing that by accepting certain patterns because everyone's patterns are different, right? So looking at our patterns, looking at other people's patterns and values and how that might not really line up, but that's where the friction is. So that's something we're going to be processing. Just, just to let you know, going into Scorpio season is really a good time to actually go and get some counseling. You know, if there are issues that we are having come up and look at whatever it was last week, because I guarantee that's the Sun square Pluto, Mercury square Pluto, facing down like death and transformation or literal death and a lot of fear and obsession and control and all of that. Because not, your friends can't always listen to everything. And I guarantee you, if you're repeating the same stuff over and over again, you're stuck. And even the most sympathetic friend is going to be just like, you know, deal with the shit. Just deal with it. Do something with it. Like, figure the shit out. You can't just keep like going back to the same old stinking, rotting corpses. And if you don't understand it, that's a good time to get somebody like that's actually trained in counseling and therapy, and they are going to take a more detached view. Anyway, so that's my recommendation right there. The moon will square to Jupiter. It could be bringing up whatever the excess is, whatever, um, yeah, just exacerbating the maybe the disconnect and uh, where maybe our values are not lining up, where we differ in our relationship. So in one, we need to be getting on the same page with ourselves, and then looking outside to see, are we on the same page with other people? Do our values really align? Are we moving in the same direction that I think we are? Like, you don't know until you actually talk, right? Okay. So Mercury's in Scorpio now. It's ready to talk about the deep stuff. It's sort of, you know, skimming the surface when Mercury was in Libra, and it got really intense towards the end of Libra, squaring Pluto, and everything might have blown up. But now, as the dust settles, it might be good to go back to the issues that we had last week if there was anything that came up between ourselves and other people. Um, and starting today, we can take an emotionally detached stance where we can look at things. So let's look at Monday tomorrow. So today we are in the first day of Mercury in Scorpio, but tomorrow we have the sun moving into Scorpio. So, and that's part of our identity, our life force, our focus, our will, as it is intrinsically intertwined with who we are. It's not just our actions in a Mars sense. Our will is demonstrated by our actions. Now it is our very being and our very essence. And diving deep into Scorpio means that we are going to, in order to transcend, have to look at the deeper stuff, the deeper meaning, which I personally enjoy. So it's all good here. Um, we will have, let's see. Yeah, so Mercury today actually is making a trine to Saturn. Definitely in some ways able to get a mental hold on what we are, what our aims are, what our goals are, what we want to understand and communicate. It's working with Saturn, um, because it's really hard with Saturn in Pisces. It's really hard to like get a grip on things because it's two separate sort of energies where Saturn is defining and Pisces is undefinable. Really, literally. So we don't know where the boundaries are. It's kind of difficult, but we're getting more of a grip on it because since Mars moved into Scorpio, we know where the boundaries are because even though they may be sort of invisible, energetically we feel them when we act and assert ourselves with force. We hit that invisible wall. So we're kind of fumbling in the dark. But with Mercury now making that trine to Saturn, that's getting more of a like the mind get like grasp the mind can grasp, like can gain a little bit of footing, but it's the mind, but it's intuitive because we're dealing with water. Scorpio and Pisces is water. So while it is a little bit more stable, it's still a little weird. Um, because we're picking up on things. The psychic antennas are picking up on things now with Mercury in Scorpio, and Saturn is helping us to form that sort of mm, hone the psychic antenna, so to speak. So Monday, that's a 4 day. Sun goes into Scorpio. Now we're slipping deep. Mercury, like I said, trining to Saturn. Anytime Mercury makes a good aspect to Saturn, it's always a good day to be productive, to be mature, to take on responsibility, to be accountable. And here it's our words and our thoughts. And I feel like we can really use what we've learned over the past couple of weeks since Mars has gone into Scorpio. It's very, very good for investigation and research. So if there's any topics that are um, interesting to you, it's a great time for study and going very deep into psychology and the paranormal. Um, Well, it's just perfect for this Halloween season. So the sun will do the same. Um, I think that's a very positive aspect with the sun trying to Saturn. So I expect that to be a little bit of a relief this week. So go with it. On Tuesday, that's the 24th, that's a 5 day. Again, the sun as it moves into Scorpio and trining with Saturn. I already said that. Um, I forgot to mention that on the 23rd, Monday, the moon is in still in Aquarius. And it does make a square to Uranus. So if there's a disconnect or a sudden change, and let's see. Well, there could be, I mean, one of the things I've seen happening with Uranus, there's been weird stuff going on with technology. Um, and the moon is in the sign that Uranus rules, so it could be anything. I mean, it could be anything with social media, friends, groups, um, uh, just unexpected changes, and a lot of rebelliousness. The rebelliousness is growing. So anything having to do with groups and networks and associations and technology and rebelliousness, that's going to become a factor over this week. And I've seen some things brewing, but I won't go into it because I'm trying to keep it under 3 hours today. Oh my God. Are you kidding me right now? But again, Moon in Aquarius is a really good time to network. That's Aquarius networking and to perhaps make new connections and take a more detached view of what's going on so that you can understand where things are going. Yeah, so if we have any weirdness with social media and then internet, it might be on that day. I'm not going to say what I think it is. It could be anything. Anyway, it might not be you. Depends on your chart. So let's see. That's the 23rd. Yeah, that I didn't mention the moon being in Aquarius. So on the 24th, yep, Tuesday. Okay, we went over that. Venus is at the 14 degrees of Virgo, and that was the Mercury retrograde conjunct to the sun. So if you go back a couple of months, back to September, whatever was going on, I believe could be coming up again, or, whatever kind of insights that Mercury retrograde brought you during that time where the sun fused, the spirit, let's say, fused with the mind and gave you some amazing insights into your Mercury retrograde path through Virgo, whatever that was relating to for you. Um, in terms of health, there were some things coming up being talked about, so I would look at whatever that means in terms of health and well-being, exercise, detox, um, Virgo stuff, health regulations, procedural things that has a lot to do with Virgo. But in terms of Venus, so financial stuff, perhaps stuff coming up like with the the house debacle. We have no speaker. Anyway, yeah, I'm not gonna really go into that. That's where I get into those 3-hour discussions because then I start talking about asteroids and politics and legal shit. But God, I've talked about it as ad nauseum. That's all of that criminal networks, RICO, criminal syndicates, lawsuits that are going on, legal issues, the government, that's all of the House procedural committee and blah blah blah. So Venus will start to make a trine to asteroid house, but not before crossing over a fetus. And I'll probably get into it this week, maybe. All right, so the 24th, we've got the moon. The moon will conjunct Saturn, so that is a very mature, grounded, sobering moment. And it's a reality check anytime you're dealing with Saturn. The moon and Saturn are going to be making a trine to the sun in Scorpio. So, wow. I feel like that is going to be, hmm, in terms of leadership, we really need to be in our own lives, but um, we're looking for people to lead who are emotionally intelligent and psychically intuitive, but also who have values and standards and integrity, right? Because that moon conjunct to Saturn is just craving maturity and wisdom. But this is a wisdom beyond worldly, mundane wisdom. This is past life wisdom. This is spiritual wisdom. This is um, a kind of a compassion and true integrity because you have to be able to handle Scorpio's secrets. And it's interesting that this comes up as the sun goes into Scorpio because during Scorpio we're going to get to talk about my favorite portion of the zodiac, which are the stars that fall behind the backdrop of the tropical sign of Scorpio, which are actually the stars in the constellation of Libra, which are the scales. And the scales, before they were Libra, they were all part of Scorpio. And they were what is now the scales in Libra were the claws of the scorpion. So the transit through the stars of Libra, but the sign of Scorpio are the esoteric and exoteric path, literally. If you're looking at the star lore behind the major stars in the constellation, um, representing the scales, obviously, but like I said, the claws of the scorpion, it it shows the path of the initiate, someone being initiated into the mysteries of the occult, but also this is sort of your dark night of the soul, um, walking through the underworld, which is your own shadow, and being initiated into a deeper wisdom, um, where we're given choices on the path, and um, sometimes we fall and we stumble, and other times we have more of a victory. But it speaks about the wisdom and the need for integrity spiritually, like, because it matters on a soul level. And this is what we take with us when we pass. Those are our accomplishments. So, very interesting stars in the tropical sign of Scorpio. And we'll be talking more about it this week. But let's go on with the week and the aspects. We get to Wednesday. That's our sixth day. That's 1025. It's the sixth. We have the sun, like I said, trine still to Saturn. And we have the moon opposing Venus. So, you know, a good day to look at, are we being hypercritical? Are we externalizing all of that criticism and being, really putting ourselves in a place of judging others, or are we having compassion? Because there but for the grace of God go I. Um, I feel like we are probably, well, with Venus and Virgo, we're definitely focused on the underdog and those who are in lack. And so helping others in need is a great focus that we can have in particular. What else do we have? We have Mars starting to, it's not exact yet, but Mars opposing Jupiter, which can create a bit of a conflict and perhaps a testing of our values and our boundaries a little bit, and maybe stirring up some jealousy and attachment. Jupiter in Taurus is very attached. So, this is the other thing that I feel like we need to get a grip on. Taurus with Scorpio opposite. It is our attachment to our value system, you know, what's important to us, and in terms of like tangible resources or um how much we're attached to other people. There's a lot that came up with last week's square to the sun square Pluto and Mercury square Pluto. I feel like also with the South Node, a part of what needed to be released was like understanding what our attachment is. What are our attachment patterns? How do we attach to other people? And we may not realize that we are attached to someone or something until you take it away, right? um, I have said many times, if you want to understand why, like, what is the attachment of another person to you, um, withdraw your energy or, stop feeding a certain thing and then see what the reaction is. It is testing someone, but um, sometimes it comes out of a need to Stop giving because there is an unhealthy attachment and you realize it because you're being depleted or you're being aggravated or it's causing a problem in the relationship. So if you stop if you stop participating in the pattern of the relationship, then by observing the reaction, um like does it improve the relationship or um does the other person react in an unhealthy way, then you can address the pattern. Like, I know it maybe doesn't seem right, or it's like, that's game playing or manipulation. No, it fucking isn't. I'm a Capricorn, so coming from me, everything is strategy, everything is um not punishment and reward, but cause and effect, because that's karma, right? Cause and effect. For every action, there is a reaction. And sometimes you do have to adjust for those things. But it can get weird because people don't like it. And then they're like, and they get all passive aggressive. And then you see what people are really made of. But sometimes, you just do it because for your own, like, survival. Like needing to conserve your own energy or to like shift things because it's like it's too taxing, whatever it is. And anyway, so looking at attachment is something that we need to do during Scorpio season because Taurus and Scorpio, well, all fixed signs are attached because they're fixed and they don't like change. Don't rock the boat. Like if you do something, if you're in dynamic with a fixed sign and you do something different, you better believe that that psychic wave ripples. It absolutely ripples. So, Taurus is physical attachment, and Scorpio represents emotional attachment. So, we can really look at how we might be um, emotionally and psychologically addicted to a relationship, a friendship, a situationship, or whatever, a financial outlet, whatever it is. Scorpio season is going to force you to look at your attachments because that is how we're going to process on a psychological level what our patterns are in terms of how we react, what is conscious, what is unconscious, what situations are we finding ourselves in time after time after time. And we think, oh, why do I always have to deal with this type of person? Well, it's because you're that type of person, or you have, you know, there's just something that, like, that's that psychological wounding, ego wounding, the pattern of Pallas Athena, where we can see where we're off balance. So on the 25th, we have the moon in Pisces making an inconjunct to Pallas. Um, Maybe a little bit of feeling the victim or seeing if someone is playing the victim. What happens when someone's feelings are hurt? Uh, just seeing patterns in general of what's going on with that. But the moon in Pisces is very sensitive, so we're picking up on it in an intuitive way. So, um, Pisces, when the moon goes through Pisces, there is a lot of hypersensitivity and the need for escape from things. Um, It's definitely a moon to want to just like flake and goof off, maybe be it's super creative, you know, if that's your inclination, is highly creative and probably easier to achieve mind altering states. But like, obviously that's where Pisces gets the reputation too for substances because Neptune and Pisces rule like drugs and alcohol, stuff like that. So, something to watch out for, I guess. But it feels like um we're getting a grip maybe financially because mm, the Jupiter Venus trine, a little bit more stabilizing. That could be very good. All right, so the 26th, that's a 7 day. That's the Thursday. The moon is early in the day conjunct Pisces, so there's a little floatiness, drifty, sort of wanting to maybe just soak it all up. And if you're feeling any kind of lack of clarity, just put off big decisions. Just try to focus. We don't really have any bad aspects or difficult aspects um, to Neptune and Pisces right now, except for the South Node, which would be more of like the lack of clarity comes from you're still processing everything that happened when we had the Sun and Mercury back to Mars going over the South Node. It's still a little tender. So if there's anything that comes up around that, it's just know it's related to a lot of the processing we've been going through. So, um, that's really early in the day. So maybe it starts off a bit drifty and then the moon goes into Aries. So most of the day the moon is in Aries and it is making an inconjunct to the sun. So there is definitely something new being acted upon or coming to light in the Scorpio realm that, let's see. Well, I think the moon is also highlighting a little bit of relationship issues when it comes to, let's say, marriage and partnership, also with fear and jealousy and judgment being part of the shadow that we're dealing with when it comes to marriage and partnership, or like the ideals and values that we are looking for when it comes to partnering. Because we have Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, and Juno conjunct and have been conjunct as they entered into Virgo. So it's a different part of the shadow that we're dealing with as opposed to when they were both in Leo, like for the past, I don't know, 3 months or so. That's a very different energy now. It's like it's more conservative, I think, uh, and wanting sort of mm, I don't know, a more demure. There's rather than the ostentatiousness of Leo. We're shifting more into looking at partnerships in terms of commitment and values and integrity and long lasting partnerships, because when those 2 points entered into Virgo they opposed Saturn, So Saturn says, we want, we want some boundaries. They're not really clear because this is kind of new to us, but we want the commitment. We want something that's long lasting. Um, but we're still working out the details of what does that look like? Because we never seen that before. We're looking at a new way of partnering and sort of a more perfected and maybe like a more discerning view on partnerships. But there is a little bit of that shadow there with Black Moon Lilith because we could be overly picky sometimes, or we could be, afraid because, what is it that we don't see? What am I not seeing? Yeah. What are the boundaries? What are the parameters? And the moon makes an inconjunct to those two. So that's why I'm bringing it up, and then makes an inconjunct to the sun in Scorpio. Now, the sun in Scorpio is going to be at 3 degrees of Scorpio. That triggers last fall's eclipse. So there is something that really needs to be looked at here. Go back. I mean, if you remember what you were going through at that time, or, if those eclipses in the fall, that primarily the solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio was bringing up a lot with intimacy issues, addictions, um, s- you know, whatever, whatever under the Scorpio heading, trust. Um, well, I'm thinking about, oh, I can't help it. I can't help but think about some of the true crime stuff. I just have to do a video that's just on that because there's one case in particular that's about to like blow the fuck up. Um, and it happened during that time of last fall's eclipse, but it's secrets. It's the Scorpios, the hidden stuff, and it is going to be exposed, whether it's a sudden realization um coming through that moon in Aries. I mean, this is something like completely new. Like, oh my God, I suddenly get it. Like, this is where I need to go. This is what that issue was about. And now I understand and I can move forward, and I'm ready to commit to a path, a person, whatever, value system, whatever it is. It is linked to that eclipse last year. So definitely look at that. So that's the 26th, and Mars is, like I said, it is opposite to Jupiter. So, um, I mean, we are really pursuing a deeper understanding, um, and it is going to force our hand in some way because we need to act upon our values, right? But we can also be hmm, seeing attacks based on people's value system and beliefs. So keep that in mind. Um, that acting upon your beliefs, you have to do it, but it is going to, where you're going to be forced to show your hand in a certain way because it'll be obvious by what you're doing and how you're acting and where you're going. Does that make sense? But because the moon goes into Aries, then we have to look at Mars. So we're having to look at the masculine, the aggression, the anger, the action assertiveness and war. police, obviously military, and all of that, because the moon in Aries is going to trigger the sun, trigger Mercury, and trigger Mars. So I expect this is sort of a soft declaration of war in a way. But make no mistake, because when Scorpio declares war, it's fucking on. Ah. Anyway, that's a 7 day. Sevens are always a sort of a challenge. But it's a challenge on a deep, intuitive level, I guess. I guess you have to align your actions with your beliefs. But you don't know what that is if you're not really looking at yourself. All right. All right. And I I just feel like there won't be really any tolerance for passive aggressive stuff. I think it'll be confronted within relationships. I- It'll cause friction. Um you got to be upfront. I mean, but how do you do that? Like, how does someone do that if they don't really understand their own internal motives and they're not doing that shadow work? It's just gonna. That's where your fucking chaos is gonna be coming from. Where like you don't understand why things are falling apart. That's the time to go within and look at yourself and look at your own patterns. All right, so the 26th moon is gonna be, you know. I mean, Aries moon is not a bad moon, but it's definitely self-focused. It's time where you really do want to be assertive and take some action, although it could ruffle people's feathers. But fuck them, I say. Not butt fuck them, but like but comma fuck them. The 27th. That's an 8 day. The moon will conjunct Chiron and oppose Pallas Athena. So someone is butthurt. Someone is showing the pattern. We're seeing the pattern. Um, we're learning a strategy. We are definitely uh, being able to stand up for ourselves. This is highly supported, and we've got. Ooh, let's see. What do we have here? So the moon and Chiron are going to make what's called a finger of God, or a yod. Moon and Chiron in conjunct on the one hand to Venus in Virgo, very much wants to be regimented and purified, and um, is very concerned with health and diet and stuff like that. On the other hand, we have Ceres, which is the grain goddess, which is associated with Virgo. Um, and it is a nurturing, sort of a feminine figure. Um, Feminine in the sense that I went over in my last podcast last week about the goddess figures and how they are really all the same. They all have the same root basically, but Ceres is very connected to Virgo. Um, Ceres is the goddess of the harvest. Okay, so bringing in it's the idea of bringing the harvest in to the temple, so to speak, to be presented, to be blessed by God. But also that harvest is meant to be shared, and it's supposed to be there uh for all, to be supported through the winter months. The church doesn't look at it that way. I mean, some churches might, but in general, I think they've kind of gotten away from that. Um, it's more like the money going towards really sustaining the corporation that is what the church has become. Anyway, so I wonder if there's something going on with like food production because Ceres being related to like the grain and the harvest. But in Scorpio, is there a poisoning? Are we looking at the poisoning, like poisoning of our food supply in general, or is this an attack upon the food supply? Moon and Chiron in Aries. Aries and being Mars ruled is inflammation. Um, that's something that I was looking at all through Virgo season and the Mercury retrograde is the digestive system and addressing inflammation within the body. So this is something perhaps with Ceres being there in this yod and being in Scorpio, perhaps we could benefit from doing some research and understanding what is exactly in our food, in our grains. I know a lot of people have issues with grains. And for a long time I thought, it's a a gluten thing. So I did the gluten-free diet for a long time and it really helped. I feel like it helped heal my digestive tract. Um, but with further research and many years down the line, I realized that there's also an issue with the bioengineering of the wheat and chemicals that are used, the glycophase, wait, I can't remember, glycophosphate in the grains. So this might be something, if you are having issues, it might be something that you want to look at. But in terms of the aspect in general, um, I know we have seen what we think are possibly attacks on our supply chain and food, like blowing up of like food production plants, earlier in the year and even last year, um, attacks on, well, are they attacks? I just think they're a little too coincidental. I think that's, um, I just we've been at war. We've been at war, but we haven't seen it. Now, with this aspect, now I'm looking at this and thinking it's going to become perhaps more obvious or more believable if you might tell the average person that, oh, remember when this happened, that plant blew up and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was, a coordinated planned attack. We may be seeing and understanding what might have been behind those things. And some things that we thought were accidents might have been very deliberate. But we could also see perhaps some kind of attack coming. But with Venus in Virgo, I feel like it would be resource an attack on resources and specifically food. Because we have Mars opposing Jupiter in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, its resources, its our raw materials, and Venus in Virgo to me says food. So, huh. I don't know. Then Venus throughout the week, the week af- after the 29th, let's say, it's going to oppose Neptune, which to me is like food poisoning, potentially. So that's something to watch out for. Because with Mars opposite Jupiter and in Pisces, I'm sorry, in Scorpio. And then let's get into the 28th. So the 28th, look at the 28th, and that's a 9. Follow the clues that are happening on the 3, 6, and 9 days. I cannot even emphasize this enough. Be observant, be vigilant, be aware, because what you see on those days is going to tell you where this is going. And this is a difficult aspect happening on the 28th on the 9 day. Um, the fighting, the argument, the war has shifted. Like the tactics have shifted, and this is psychological warfare too, whether it's manipulation in relationships or whatever, political, whatever. Uh, because on the 28th, we've got Mercury and Mars opposing Jupiter. Going into the 29th, the 28th, and the 29th, the moon will be in Taurus, and we're having our lunar eclipse on the 28th. So you really want to watch that day. Um, hmm. I'm going to do a show, obviously popping up when I am able during the week, and I will specifically talk about the lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are a peak, a culmination, and an ending. One of the themes that is ending relates to the transit of the North Node through Taurus that we've had for the last year and a half. And the focus was on money, finances, resources, natural resources, food supply. We were seeing a lot of that, um, and issues with currency and what have you. Everything that was amplified over the before the nodes shifted. Now we're in Aries and Libra, but when we were in Taurus and Scorpio, that was that was a battle for resources. That was dealing with our attachments to resources and our money versus other people's money, our value, self-worth versus other people, and do we trust them? Do we let them in? Intimacy issues, physicality and sex. That's Taurus and Scorpio. So there is something culminating and ending on this Saturday, the 28th, a 9-day, which is an ending. And we have the eclipse, the lunar eclipse, and that occurs at 5 degrees of Taurus. So please look at your chart, see if you have anything that is being affected. Um, the aspects will let you know whether it's going to be, pretty smooth sailing or if there's going to be a difficulty. But whatever you haven't resolved from last fall's eclipses is likely to come up again. Um, but my guess is that it's coming up to the degree that you haven't dealt with it, and it's letting you know that this cycle is done because this is the last eclipse that's happening in the sign of Taurus, but it does relate to the past. Does that make sense? You're closing out a cycle, but there could be some kind of event that goes along with it, or it could just be a really very deep emotional sort of release. God, I cannot believe I've gotten through one whole week and it only took me an hour. Woohoo! Yeah, so the eclipse, of course, eclipses are always intense in some regard and fashion. And what I was talking about with the Jupiter opposite Mars and Mercury in Scorpio, um, with the lunar eclipse, it is going to bring some kind of a confrontation, maybe a clash of words and friction, but it is over people's beliefs and values and however you've been seeing that play out in your life, but also because secrets are coming out. Things are being exposed, things we didn't know about, things being dredged up that, maybe we did know about, but we didn't want to talk about. Maybe legal issues. That's Jupiter. Uh, yeah, this is going to be interesting for certain legal cases, but and for our laws regarding how we deal with perhaps criminals and the court system, but the two-tier justice system, I feel like that will be a big issue. Very, very obvious that there is a difference between, let's say, public figures and elite type people and leaders as opposed to the everyday person. But we're also seeing a very marked difference between how certain people are treated and other people um, who are on the same level. They are obviously above the common person. They have status, they have visibility, they have power and clout and a lot of money, but yet they are it is in the difference in how people are being treated within the court system, and how certain cases are being handled, investigated, and what is allowed to come into court and what is not. Um, Over the last few weeks, there's a lot of stuff going on that I think we'll find out with this eclipse, like why certain things happened, because we don't have all the information yet, but we will. Jupiter's the truth, and Mars and Mercury are really fighting for the truth and digging deep in the dirt of Scorpio. So the 28th and the 29th, because on the 29th, Jupiter and the moon will be conjunct and opposing Mars and Mercury. A lot of perhaps maybe very, very intense communication over these things on Sunday. But you know what? It's all for the transformation to bring these things out into the light so that, again, they could be healed. Okay, I think that's it for today. I see my screen here is stuck. Oh my God. Am I having issues? I might be. Ah, my screen is stuck. I don't even know. Who knows if we're even recording? I guess we'll find out. If not, I'll redo it tomorrow. Don't, don't fret. I'll be back to give you the skinny. All right, so I'm gonna hop off. That's it for today. Wow, there goes my stream. Mm-mm. Okay, that was weird. My screen just totally refreshed. And Dave, thank you for letting me know. It was fine. You could still hear me. Yay! Grounding is good. Yes, it is, Dave. Grounding is good. Sometimes you just have to check in and be like, I am here now. And realize that everything is fine. Unless you're in chaos, then be in the moment and handle what you need to handle. But don't worry about the past. Don't fret about the future. Be in the now. All right, guys, or guy. I don't think anyone else is listening right now, but in the future you will be. But I'm not worried about that because you're not here now, and I'm here now. And that's the only thing that matters. All right, signing off. I will pop up during this week. I will have more of an explanation of the lunar eclipse that's coming up. I think it's going to be good. I mean, I think they're all good. But I love revelation of secrets, and I feel like that's coming up. So it's good. I'm here for it. All right, you guys, I will check you later, and you know where to find me. AstroLunaChick on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever. Rumble, and please see my link in the description for my Gilded chat. There isn't much going on there, but if you join, then maybe there will be. I post my videos there, and if there's any updates that I need to make, I put them in there. But we want to get the party started, so go over, join the Gilded channel. And with that, oh yeah, I have a Substack. I keep forgetting. I haven't updated it, like, I don't know. Maybe I was doing that last year. But subscribe to the Substack because if I need to shift things around, and even if I'm not able to record on YouTube or Rumble in the future, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But if there's something that I want to discuss of a sensitive nature, uh, I can do that. I can do podcasts through Substack. So the newsletter, Substack. Go look for me, Astral Lunatic, and subscribe. And with that said, I will catch you guys this week. Ciao for now.